Hi Lisa, so nice to talk to you.
Hi, Chrissy. Thank you for having me.
I'm really looking forward to this conversation because you've been doing some amazing work and I'm just ready to jump in. I have a ton of questions for you just to understand a little bit more about what you're up to lately.
Awesome. I'm ready.
Cool. So, my first question for you is like you've been working in mostly learning and development in places like Amazon and Momodo, and now you've founded your own company called Collective Anchors. Can you walk me through that evolution? Like, when did you start coaching?
Yes, so I probably have to revert a little bit back because I originally come from a psychological background. So I studied psychology and then ended up in learning and development, which is not the typical path when you started psychology. But for me, it was very early clear that I didn't want to work as a psychotherapist, even though I was interested in that kind of work and that field. But I wanted my work to be preventative. So I always wanted to help people before they get sick instead of afterwards. So I transitioned into learning and development, which was a bit unusual and came out of nowhere. But I'm so grateful that I clipped in that path because it helped me a lot understand the corporate world and international big structures and positions, but also how can we support us us adults in kind of learning, making change, driving new perspectives. And I never really left that anchor of, that's why it's also called collective anchor, of kind of bringing that nuance of psychology, of
Mm.
mental well-being into the workplace. So it all kind of added up very nicely, I'd say. And I came to kind of towards coaching very early in the sense of I've always enjoyed having conversations with people and kind of interacting, learning a lot from different cultures and also from the positions I held. So that was just a natural move for me. And there was also that curiosity of there is more that we're currently exploring and also bringing to the workplace. And I think that's been my core motivator all over these years ago, to look deeper and trying to understand and see possibilities where we can create a workplace culture that supports our individual strengths and nuances, and ultimately help also prevent burnout, um, exhaustion, and the kind of health issues we currently see rising.
Oh, amazing. I love how you tied it all together. So it's actually not a career pivot, it's more just like going a little bit deeper in the work you were already doing, right? Just from a different perspective. That's super interesting.
Exactly.
Okay, and with the
Yeah.
coaching, like what kind of coaching do you focus on exactly? Like who would you say that you serve?
Yes, so it is not a traditional coaching, I have to say. I'm not a traditional coach because I've always been interested. I think you see that already from the background I come from. I've always been interested in collecting different approaches and viewpoints. So my approach is really holistic,
Mm.
and goes deep and combines elements from psychology, from neuroscience, from coaching, mentoring. So it's not a strict element you can put into one box. And I think that's also really helpful to know in the type of work I do and how I work, because it's a combination. It's not passive, it's very active and working with you. And I focus on especially leaders in high pressure environments because I've been myself a leader in that environment. And I know it's always, or there's a trend going for faster, quicker, more
Mm.
effective. But there's also high risk in that approach because not all we look at does really move the needle and does really benefit us and our brain and that structure. So that's kind of a little bit where I pivoted into.
Okay, that's super interesting. So you felt like it was kind of the support that you needed in a way, or was there a different reason why you decided to focus on this particular problem?
Yes, so obviously through my own experience, that I was thrown into leadership position out of nowhere with like no
Mhm.
real support, and it was more of learning on the job. And that was very tough in the beginning. That was like when I was in my mid 20s, I was just put in front of managing people. And that's a different skill set that you actually need instead
Yeah.
of being an individual contributor. And so I struggled myself through that experience. It taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about what it actually takes. And that's always that curiosity and care for people. And then also through conversations and my own observations of like how get people moved into leadership positions, that it's often not based on these qualities, but because they've been good at the individual contributor
Mhm.
role and then pushed into leadership, which is, in my opinion, also a bit risky because it's a different kind of skill set. And then I think back to my core motivator and my starting point of seeing and having conversations with people in those positions, getting sick, falling out of the system, dealing with mental exhaustion, physical problems, health issues, burnout, depression, like all those kind of rises we see in society that got emphasized by the culture and the type of work. So that was for me the flipping point of, okay, what can we do actually to support people that are in leadership positions,
Mm.
dealing with a lot of pressure? Because if you know how to lead yourself and you are good at what you do in your leadership role, that emphasizes on the team and then automatically creates a different workplace setting and culture.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people can resonate with this, that they were kind of thrown into a leadership role, right? And they didn't have some kind of extensive training or preparation before entering that new role. And as you said, it's like such a different pace, it's like a different role, identity, all of that. And so
Exactly.
much goes into it, right? Like it's not something that you can just step into like from one day to the next. So definitely that support is so needed. Amazing. So shifting gears a little bit, I want to hear about how you went from being like in a company, having a full-time job, to pivoting, no, not pivoting, but transitioning to having your own business. Like what had to be in place for you before you felt ready to actually make that move?
Ooh, that I love that question because I think a lot of people might can relate to. So for me, I've always known that I wanted to work with people and really like help people make that transformation. So that was always like at the forefront for me. However, I was also curious to gather like real time experiences and insights. And if I had to nail down the turning point, actually, I think it was a couple of years ago where I went on my sabbatical and I was a bit like in a different situation outside where I reflected on actually what am I good at? What is actually giving me energy? What is I want to focus on, and that was almost like the first domino piece in the whole chain that kind of like started to wobble a bit, and I still like stayed in my job and continued and gathered expertise and insights, which was super useful. And then I think the real shifting point was me realizing that I knew that was what I wanted to follow and focus on, and I was standing in between. And I was like not really deciding, and no decision is still a decision.
Yeah.
So that kind of realization hit me at some point where I was like, okay, actually, I have to choose. I can't do both because that's divided focus, and neither, yeah, I'm not deciding on either side. And the really, really crucial piece that helped me do that was like a lot of mindset work. Why couldn't I choose? Why was I choosing to stay comfortable or in that in between moment or situation, what benefit did I get out of that? And really looking at my internal stories, my beliefs, and what kind of like held me back. And then it was kind of like I almost felt that kind of shift happening where I was like, okay, I have to decide. I have to be really clear and then go all in. And that's when I went all in and Collective Anchors was born.
Amazing. Well, I think a lot of people can also relate to this, where you kind of want to be in a more secure place when you're starting out to like test your idea and to like
Mm,
see if it's really for you and have product market fit. But then at some point, as you said, like once it grows to a certain point, you're like, oh, I need to kind of choose like which one I'm going to do. And it's a split focus, but also like it's completely different modes, right? That you're shifting between. And
yeah.
yeah, I have a question here. So, looking back on like how you did it and yeah, your whole journey and how you support people at work, what advice would you have for anyone who's thinking of doing the same thing that wants to maybe start a side business while they have a full-time job?
Mm. Yes. So one thing I would like to add is it really was a journey for me. It's not a quick decision where you just decide on. Like that might take a little bit as well. And for me, like it's very individual. For me, it took 2 years until like I really went in. I'm not saying
Mhm.
do it like in 2 years or whatever, but I would probably start in getting to know yourself really well, starting to invest in yourself. Who are you? Like, what are your values? What are your strengths? What do you actually strive for? Like, what gives you energy? What drains your energy? And then think about the kind of like what an ideal day looks like. And
Mhm.
not just in the terms of setup, like what would you do, but actually how do you want to feel and how do you want to show up? And kind of like investing that time first in understanding what it is and then don't overthink it. Just try to start small. What's the smallest task and action you can take today? It doesn't need to be perfect, it doesn't need to be worked out, but you need to be clear on that's what I want to do. And the strategy and the how you do it, that comes afterwards. But it
Mhm.
all starts within where you're like, okay, this is what I want to do.
Yeah,
Get
absolutely.
yourself in that state and energy, and the how, the strategy follows after.
Mm. Wow. Okay, that's really profound, and I can relate so much to this because it took me 2 years as well. And I did invest a lot in my own growth. I had like a similar moment to you where I went to Japan and I was just like, I don't really want to be doing like a corporate job for the rest of my life.
Mm,
And I also like love to have impact on other people's lives. Like I felt like my job was only using maybe like 20 to 30% of my skills. And I was like, I really want to do more. But at the moment, like it's just not the right timing. So I also decided to like start very small and I did a coaching certification and then I started to like create some content and get my first clients. And from there, it was like a whole journey of discovery, right? Like getting to know yourself, as you said. And what helped me a lot was actually some external support as well, so some coaching. Um, do you think it's possible for somebody to do the whole thing themselves? Like, it's quite like a lot of reflection and some, yeah, deep work that you have to do to like really understand
mm,
yourself and like what you're good at, your values, your strengths, all those things that you mentioned. Do you think that it's beneficial to work with somebody externally, or do you think somebody can go through that process by themselves and have like the same profound reflections?
I love that question because I have a very firm opinion on it in the sense of there is that trend of being independent, of striving for doing it alone and doing it all by yourself. I actually think we are wired to be with other people, and you don't have to be good at all and at everything.
Mm-hmm.
And for me personally, it helped me a lot. Like or like I've worked the last 5, 6 years with mentors, with people by my side, with experts in certain fields because of that continuous learning and growth, and you go so much deeper. I wouldn't say you can't do it by yourself, but probably not on the in the depth and in the kind of like intensity, because another person or an external person has always a kind of like different perspective. And I found that quite refreshing in my journey to have that sometimes a mirror of
Mm,
what's going on, but sometimes that, hey, have you looked at that angle or think outside of the box? So I would strongly recommend. Like for me, it worked, and it's a continuous journey. It doesn't mean just because I have my business now that stops. I believe in lifelong learning, hence why I started my career as well in learning and development, because that's a core value of mine, of that
mm,
growth continuously, and it doesn't stop. It might shift in depth or in the focus, but it still continues. And I love learning from other people.
yeah.
So for me, that's a non-negotiable when it comes to business setup or growth, to have experts by your side, or even change. Doesn't need just to be in business.
Exactly. And it's the same in entrepreneurship. Like, I think that when you try to do everything by yourself, you might figure it out eventually, but it's just going to take longer, right? Than going
Exactly.
to people, talking to people, figuring out what your customers want. Like, you have to actually like get people involved in the process for it to move a little bit faster. And I noticed for me as well, like the minute I got some external support, some coaching, and like different things to help me figure out like my business model and help me figure out like exactly the direction I wanted to take and so on. It just accelerated the speed, right, of like how quickly I was able to fill up my calendar with clients or reach
Yeah.
my goal of like being ready to actually leave my job. Yeah, so that's something that I kind of like regret or that I would probably do sooner if I had known, because at the beginning you kind of feel there's maybe a little bit of ego as well, and you feel like, oh, I know what I'm doing, like I'm smart enough to figure this out, I'm just going to do it myself. But actually there's so much that we don't know, right? So it's always like
Yeah.
so humbling when somebody else like kind of gives you the mirror also, as you said, and you realize, oh wow, I actually don't know so much, and by taking on the support I'm able to get there so much faster.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds very familiar. Like that wanting to do it and then that ego standing in the way. I can relate to that a lot. But then on the other side, like it's also about smart decisions and like working with what you have and not against you.
Yeah.
And in terms of like time and energy are like very kind of like pricey in that sense. They are limited. So you want to also shift towards making the most out of the time you have. And that requires like looking left and right and getting help on making that start and actually thinking about what moves the needle for you in that position.
Exactly. Yeah. So if
Yeah.
you would give advice to somebody who's just starting, what would you tell them to prioritize first?
I would say the few bits and pieces I mentioned before, like start probably investing in yourself first, sitting down with yourself and getting clear on what do you value, what are your values, what are you good at. We often are so prone, and people, there are actually studies, people can give you a full list of what they can't do and are not good at, and
Mm,
shifting towards what is it actually that makes you you and makes you unique. And I'm sure there are, like, everyone has those strengths and skills, but we tend to shift to the negative because that sticks more. So I would say start small. Think about what you enjoy doing, what you're good at, where you also have proof
mm,
from friends, your environment, from situations that prove that expertise or your strength. And also because sometimes we have blind spots and we don't see what we're good at. I would ask my five closest friends, and I still do that occasionally. How would you describe me? What are my strengths? What do you value from me as your friend or your partner, whatever, your colleague? Um, to really get both sides of the coin, because we obviously evaluate based on our experiences, but that external viewpoint can be really beneficial.
That's a great tip. Have you ever asked somebody this question and then you were shocked by the answer?
Yes. Yes, but always shocked in a positive way.
Mm,
Because, as I said, you have a certain image and perception, and that can vary a lot how other people see you. So things that I would see, I wasn't that proficient, people really found inspiring or
mm,
outstanding, and that was really really good and helped me a lot. But there's also like, it's also about finding out what is there to kind of like move through and improve. So I also take that. There are also things that I can take as improvement areas. And it's not about like, it's all about how that message gets delivered.
that's a really great tip. Okay. So my final question to you, and I have even more questions, but I'll have to call you up later because we're running out of
Yes.
time. But my question to you is about like your ideal clients. So they are basically leaders who are navigating a lot of responsibility and constant pressure. And you're basically helping them to lead from presence rather than the pressure. If somebody is watching this, listening to this, and they really recognize themselves in that, and they're curious about how they can work with you, what should they know?
Ah, love that question. That's a really good one. I would say, basically what I mentioned earlier of the way how I work, in a sense of like, it's not traditional coaching. I always like to say that upfront and be very transparent. It has elements, but it is a holistic approach. So I also look and work with you on your body, on your emotions, on your mind, and that connection between the mind and the body, and how your brain works, how your brain learns and digests information, and all those kind of things. So it's not a straightforward classical route. And I think for me, what really is like the distinguishing point is a willingness and an openness to kind of like go deeper. It's not surface level, it's really to go to the root cause and really look at certain things, what makes you you and what maybe gets in the way,
Mm.
and what kind of like you want to do to move forward. So it's not a quick fix and passive, like I want you to be really willing to change or willing to work, and you have to put in that work as well. But you get a lot out of it.
Yeah, like there's no such thing as like a quick fix or yeah, overnight success, right? With everything that's worthwhile, you have to put in some work.
Exactly. I always say transformation comes with a price, but
Yeah.
the cost of not doing it is way higher. And it is basically your decision which route you're choosing. And if you're choosing to go that, like I'm that accountability partner that helps you narrow that in actionable steps, but you have to walk.
Mm, love that. Okay. So if somebody wants to reach out to you, where should they find you? On LinkedIn, a website? How do you prefer them to contact you?
Yeah, so they can reach me on LinkedIn. My website is currently work in progress, but up soon. And they can get a connect call in or also on Instagram. But yeah, just reach out. Don't be shy.
Perfect. So, Lisa, thank you so much. That's all the time we have for today, but it's been amazing chatting with you, and I got so many nuggets of wisdom from this. I'm sure anyone listening would have felt the same. Thanks a lot, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much, Chris. You have a good one, and thank you for the invitation.
You too. Bye.